voice, it counts them all. A team of hearts with plans to share. For every soul we're standing there. It's in the ballot, it's in our hands. Together we rise and take a stand. For every dream, for every need, community spirit is our creed. The vote is here to pave the way, working hard both night and day, delivering hope, delivering dreams. We are the ones who fuel the streets.
Hello and welcome to The Ballot. I'm your host Laura, and I'm joined today by Michelle and Collier for this special episode of It's in the Ballot, the Greytown General Ward. And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. So the way how we're going to do this today is that I'm going to be pulling questions out of the box and both candidates are going to answer the questions. But for starters, the first things first, and we need to get to know our candidates. So Michelle and Collier will give their opening statements. So Michelle, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Michelle Dawson. I've been living in Greytown for over 5.5 years. I would really like to hope that I can help council make some of the really tough decisions that are coming up, and not only provide some transparency, but actually help communicate to our community what's going on, because it's actually vital to us all.
And Collier, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Collier Isaacs, standing for council, obviously. I've actually been living in the Wairarapa for almost 20 years. We brought my family over here, or our family over here from Greytown, from Wellington, way back whenever that was. They've been to school here. They've been involved in all sorts of sporting activities, and I think they've really enjoyed their time. From me personally, I've been involved in the primary sector all my working life. Those roles have ranged from marketing, through quality assurance, through science, a whole range of things. I've had positions from chief executive through to director, and some of the budgets I've had to manage have been in excess of 150 million over 7 years, and I'm currently a director on an orcharding company. We've got $100 million worth of assets. I think in terms of actually making democracy work, it's a team sport. And really what we need to be focusing on around here is how we come up with better plans collectively to deliver on the things that the Greytown region or South Wairarapa region needs. And that all comes down to basically having consulting with the community, working with the community, coming up with a plan in a transparent fashion, and then delivering on that plan in an accountable fashion. Thank you.
Thank you. Alrighty, so you both ready to answer some questions?
Sure are.
Fantastic. All right, let's find out which one we've got first. Okay, so we're starting off with V for victory. Just go to V. Right. Okay, so what's your vision for making Greytown and South Wairarapa towns vibrant, safe, and attractive places for families and businesses? Starting with you, Michelle.
I think connections in the community are really, really important. We've got lots of different groups. We've got sporting groups, we've got school groups, we've got a lot of older residents, we've got people that are moving into Greytown because they really love it, but we've actually got to find ways for people to connect together for the wider part of to the benefit of Greytown. The Festival of Christmas has been fantastic at attracting people to Greytown. People are actually seeing how vibrant it is. They make comments on what such a fantastic place it is, how friendly people are. We need to build upon different events in the Wairarapa so that we can actually attract people who add to our community, provide employment, provide great places for people to live, and keep it as being as safe a community as possible.
And what do you think, Collier?
Well, look, I would support Michelle, but in addition to that, I think we're after thriving families, successful businesses, and guests or visitors that feel welcome in the environment. But underpinning that, however, is our sort of core infrastructure. We've certainly had some challenges in that space. The core infrastructure being water, both in and out. Water in and out. Core services like waste and things like roading. Obviously, we've got a very large area and 630 kilometres of roads, I think, and so there's a fair bit of effort required to maintain all that. Underpinning all that, it's really how do you have a vibrant town feeling? You've made a really good point in terms of the Festival of Christmas. And then how do we manage to protect nature? Obviously, our environment is very important to us. And the last piece of the puzzle is really making everybody feel they're part of the community, as you were saying. I mean, at the end of the day, the community is only strong with the members in it and how they work together, and the council needs to support the community to support the council. So in the end, we're after Wairarapa. We have, it's a great place to live, a great place to work, and a great place to raise a family.
Excellent. All right. Question D. D for dinosaur. Okay. Michelle, how willing are you to work with local hapu and iwi at a councillor level?
Oh, it's essential. I've worked with iwi before in previous roles that I've had at Waitakere City Council, and they have brought a great amount to building the community that I was involved in there. And that's the same here. If you want a really strong community, you've got to have everybody involved in that. And hapu and iwi are just as important for that as well. They bring a different way of thinking, a different perspective, a longevity in thinking, and can actually make really significant contributions if we allow them to do that. If we shut the door on them, then we're shutting the door on that long-term knowledge and benefit to the community. So I'm very, very willing to work with iwi and hapu.
And same goes for you, Collier.
Well, I'm actually part Maori, so I'm part Atiawa, so I'm consulting with myself to some degree. But absolutely, working with the local iwi is very, very important to make the council work. As they do have different perspectives on things, and quite often they're harder to work with because they have a variety of opinions that you might not find elsewhere. But absolutely, they've got to be part of the vision going forward, part of what happens, and just part of the community.
All righty. Okay. Make some noise. Okay. Make some noise if you're watching at home. These candidates are doing fantastic. There you go. All right. Question E. E for elephant. What community project in Greytown or wider South Wairarapa would you be happy to support for council community grants? Michelle.
Oh, there's already existing fantastic projects like the rail trail. They do a lot of great work out there. You've got your lines and Rotary, but I would actually really like to see some really on-the-ground initiatives get started in the Greytown community. How do we make the place more beautiful? How do we take care of our residents that can't help themselves? How do we provide additional support out in the community on the ground? And that's what I would like to see the council fund more of.
Excellent.
Look, I agree with you, Michelle, but I think there's also a sort of wider element to it. I think the open spaces and wheels parks are a really good example of something that's taken a long time, but it's actually getting going. I think the other example with partnerships was actually the council supporting the school gym here at Kurunui Cottage, which became partly school and then partly the community gym, which I think is a really important thing. But I think the The other piece is that we need to be quite transparent about how these processes work, and so that we pull in really good ideas, then you can work our way through and actually work out which ones fit with the bigger picture. And that bigger picture's got to be clear to the community so they know why we're funding things and how we'll fund them and the value they're likely to get.
All right, some excellent answers right there. Yes, it's very important to drink water, folks.
You dry mouth fast.
Yeah, you get a dry mouth doing this. Oh, and Michelle, if you could just lift your microphone up. Perfect. Okay, right. Now we'll go to question A. Okay. Oh, this is a good one. Do you support political party endorsement of local government candidates?
It's a bit of a tricky one, and I'm going to put a big qualifier on it, because I actually think how the person interacts with the community and represents the local community is actually above and beyond the party. That if they can't do that, then the political party endorsement is not actually adding value as such. If the person can bring something of strength from the party that supports the local community and adds value, then one could say there could be a way for that to move forward. But I certainly do not think political parties should be managing councils, because councils really are the local voice of in the community, not just politicians who have an agenda. It's the community.
Well, I think in any of these things that need to be transparent, and I know they are on the voting paper, but I agree the primary purpose for the local council is to represent the local people, and that's not the same as national politics, although not totally dissimilar. And so I think the local issues shouldn't be clouded by national politics. They really need to be focused on what matters in the community and delivering against those, rather than necessarily being tied back to what's going on in the national scene.
All righty. So how are we doing, guys? You ready for some more questions?
We're in violent agreement. Which is practically not that we wouldn't like you to be actually, right?
I got to find something that you guys fight over.
Well, I'd be surprised if you found something.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully question T will give us something. Okay. All righty. How would you balance long-term asset renewal, for example, pipes, roads, water, with keeping rates manageable? Starting with you, Michelle.
Yeah, it is a very, very big challenge. It really, really is. And out of any of the questions, I would say this is Greytown's question of the election. And it's not just the question of the election, but for the council that actually does get elected, how on earth they're going to do this? Because at the moment, rates are unmanageable for most ratepayers, significantly unmanageable. Now, we have a significant amount of asset upgrade that really, really needs to be done. And I think as an organisation, I had a look at what our debt levels were against what is allowed, against our revenue. We seem to be at the very, very low end. And I think we're actually going to have to make some really big financial decisions for the future, because these decisions haven't been made enough in the past. And part of that is really going to be, how do we leverage debt for the best so that it's affordable today, but we actually achieve those infrastructure outcomes we all know really need to be put into place. We can't keep putting it off. We can't keep putting the rates up to such a high level every year. Otherwise, the community itself will get bankrupt. We've got to find what the balance is. And I think if we have some very smart asset management people in place and debt management, we actually look at, but like your house, how do you put it, how do you buy your house with the mortgage? You've got to make sure it's affordable, but at the same time, it's a big debt for the household, but it's affordable for the household because you've got to have somewhere to live. Greytown and South Wairarapa is in the same position. We need these assets to be put in place and fix some of these big issues that we've got, but we've also got to make sure we can afford the bill month after month after month, because we're all in this for the long long term. It's the long game that we're playing, and that's what we've actually got to remember, that none of this is going to be solved tomorrow. None of it is going to be paid for all tomorrow, but how do we find that balance? And that, as the next council, I think is going to be the biggest challenge.
Yeah, I'd agree it's going to be a challenge, because we've really kicked this can down the road for a number of years. Had low rate increases. I'm going back quite a while because I've been here for 20 years. And we thought that was all was well. But what we didn't really understand is underneath our feet, things were not as well as they should have been. To be fair, it's no different to Wellington. It's the same issue there. But we are going to have to take a hard look at actually what we think our priorities are, and how we actually work out what we need to fund going forward in order to make these systems actually work, because you can't not have the fundamentals like, pipes and roads not actually work. So I think that, as you were saying, I think the council is going to have to make some hard calls about actually what it prioritises, what it can afford to fund in order to balance the books on this. You make a good point about debt. My reading of it says that we're not overly indebted either, and I think you can afford to put borrowed money into these sort of assets because they're a longer term. You don't want to be borrowing money to mow the lawn, so to speak.
No.
But you also need to consider that over time it's going to take more to upgrade them, and so we really need to consider how we put funds aside over time, depreciation, so that you've actually got money in the kitty going forward to fund these things and keep them maintained, so we don't wind up going off a cliff as we have done at the moment.
Alrighty, before I ask the next question, Nick, would you be able to turn Michelle's microphone up a little bit?
You're going to have to do it.
Oh, okay, I'm going to have to do it on my end.
Yeah, you're right. If there's an issue, this is it, right? And it doesn't really change much when you send it to the regional territory. We still got to pay for it. And what's it, 6,300? Cool.
Oh, hello.
Yes, much
that's
better.
sounding better.
Yes, that's better. A lot
Okay.
better. Yeah, that's all right. Don't worry, we'll edit that. We'll edit that out. Okay. Alrighty. Okay. Yep. Next question. Question R. R for radish. I do not know the phonetic alphabet, so I'm just making stuff up as I go.
Radish will do.
Radish is good. Everyone knows what that is.
Yep.
There we go. Okay. How will you hold council organisations like water services accountable for performance and spending?
So looking at previous examples during my time at Auckland Council and Wairarapa City Council, contracts with council with performance measurements in them is actually really, really important, because a contract actually outlines the agreement right up the front. Everybody knows what it's being worked towards. But you've also got to make sure that the reporting back is at an appropriate frequency, that if things really are not looking they're on track, that you've got the mechanics in place that you can actually do something about it as well.
You've got to be absolutely clear about what the expectations are, what the outcomes you're seeking are. You then need a solid plan to make sure that you understand what the actions and what the costs will be, and then you need to hold the people accountable to that plan. And further than that, if they don't actually deliver on the plan, how can you actually get some reimbursement or some cost back out of them in order to cover your extra costs? Now, a lot of organisations don't like being pushed that hard, but when you're dealing with council funds, community funds, there's no way you can afford as an organisation just to say, well, here's the bill and go for it. So it's all about having a plan, having a costed plan, and making sure the organisation delivering against it is accountable for it. And if they fail, there's costs.
Nick, you have to tell me which line is which, just so I can. What issues do happen from time? Okay. How are we doing for questions? Would you like to do some more, or?
Oh, do a couple more.
Yep, do a couple more. Excellent. Okay.
It's
Question.
strange, isn't it?
Question F. F for Ferrari.
Yeah. F for fruit.
Yes.
Yes. I had a bit of a search for information about community gardens in Greytown and actually couldn't find anything. But I did go along to a community board meeting, and somebody had expressed that they would like to see community gardens actually start in Greytown and in the Wairarapa. And I think part of it is actually looking at this, what is a successful community garden, because if you're not careful, they just get vandalised. So partnerships, community partnerships and buy-in are really, really important. You just can't put a community garden in place and say, here you go public, here, just go plant. That doesn't work. Some of the examples that I've read about are, for example, and that I've seen before are, for example, having a community garden in a retirement home, having a community guard that's helping organisations that work with people that run food banks, so that food has actually got somewhere to go. A community garden really needs to have a purpose to get the buy-in, so that the community then look after the community garden, and you know that the fruit and vegetables also is actually going to somewhere really, really good, and that the community will actually have ownership and buy-in as well.
Yeah, I think there are community gardens in Masterton and Carterton, but as far as I could find, there were none in Greytown at all. I've got a vegetable garden at home, so I'm used to thinking about community gardens in terms of my own family community. The challenge, I think, is right. You've got to find some open space in the first place. I think the open space Wheels Park might provide an opportunity to having a space to use, but unless it's connected to the community, unless you've got people that are prepared to actually work in those gardens, support the gardens, look after them, then it's not going to go anywhere. And I think, as you say, further to that, if it's not connected, if the food's not connected in the community further down the chain, and so it's getting used well, used appropriately, and not just going to waste, then it doesn't make any sense either. So I think it's not a simple thing you can just say, go and make a community garden. No. It's how do you create a community movement effectively that's really going to support the garden, the gardening, and the use of the fruit and vegetables from it.
It's an interesting question, that one, because I lived in Greytown for a number of years as well before moving away from town. I'm actually really surprised that you guys don't have a community garden program here.
Well, I was quite surprised when I went looking.
Yeah.
As obviously you were.
Yeah.
I see beautiful gardens everywhere, but no community garden?
Yeah.
That's really interesting.
Something for the community to work on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think the council can afford to fund, pay for it necessarily. It's got to be, might give them some land, but it's got to be supported by the community, lock, stock and barrel.
Yeah.
It's a community garden.
Yeah.
Alrighty. So we'll go to question AA for double AA batteries. Alrighty. Oh, this is a fun one. Okay. What is the biggest challenge facing South Wairarapa?
Yeah, I think we've really covered this.
Yeah, I think so too.
It's the wastewater, and it's not just the fact that it's about the wastewater ponds in Martha and Greytown are full because they have not been emptied for so long. It's about the fact that it's actually now hitting that no more building consents can actually be issued, including for a toilet for the skate park. There's no plans for a toilet because they can't add wastewater. And if you look at all the development that's actually had to stop, that means the building companies are struggling. That means the electricians, the plumbers, all the services that actually go into new developments. It's the rating base that's not going to grow at an acceptable level, that's going to help pay for all the infrastructure that also needs to go in place. It's a massive challenge, and the whole community knows about it. New Zealand has got a big infrastructure problem. Greytown and or Wairarapa, Martinborough, we're certainly feeling it really big at the moment because that pinch on employment too. It's not just an infrastructure thing, it's an employment, it's income into families that's also being affected.
Yeah, I think in the short to medium term, the biggest challenge we face is definitely in the infrastructure territory. There's no doubting that. Longer term, you sort of wonder, we've got a huge area of land and only a small population base. And I think our ability to actually leverage that area of land and drive the economy forward is really, really important. I was involved recently in a project looking at seed processing in the Wairarapa, and actually if you manage to leverage national funds, say Kanoa or something like that, along with local funds and farming funds, you can actually do some significant development which actually would make our economy grow. And if we don't make the economy grow, I think we're going to have some challenges going forward. So really it's part of the council's work. I think, and I'm not sure this council has done as much as they could, but how you maintain those connections to Wellington, how you manage to leverage funding either from within the region, outside the region, to get the whole region to go faster.
Alrighty. And I think we'll do one more question before we go into hard-hitting questions, if that's what you guys want to do, or we can keep going with the...
Sounds good.
That
Okay,
sounds fair.
excellent, fantastic. That's how we do things around here, guys. When we only have 2 candidates or so that turn up, we like to try and make our candidates feel as comfortable as possible and make it really easy to film. So these guys have been fantastic for turning up today. Excellent. Okay, question in for night. Nighttime, not night, not the sword swishing night. Okay, alrighty. Many residents feel disconnected from council decision making. How will you improve transparency and community engagement? Michelle.
Oh, I just look at the councillors I work with at Waitakere City Council. Today, they are still the people I hold up on a pedestal because of their participation and communication with the community. You know, being on the council is not just about reading papers and going to council meetings and making decisions. That's a big part of it, but the other part of it is really talking with the community, finding out what their opinions are, helping those opinions be put forward, because sometimes they can be muted because they don't know how to participate in council and they're not sure how decisions are being made. So I would really, really like to see the council communicate not just on what a decision is, but how a decision is actually being made, why it was made. I think consultation before the final outcome is decided is really important. You know, consultation in New Zealand seems to be, here's your 3 options, which option would you like? Instead of actually going to the community and saying, these are the issues we're faced with. If wastewater and water is our big issue, Waitakere City Council during the Auckland water crisis got water usage down by 50%, and most of those initiatives stayed in place afterwards, making Waitakere the lowest water user in the region for many, many years. So if water and wastewater is our big issue at the moment, what engagement are we having with the community to actually say, how do we reduce our wastewater per household, per business, so that we can actually make our wastewater assets at the moment go that little bit further, so that either we can add on some essential services like a toilet at a skate park,
Yep.
or that we allow X number of consents in different parts of Martinborough and Greytown, because those particular parts could cope if the surrounding community manages to reduce its wastewater. That's just one example. There are many decisions that council makes, and I know councillors are elected to make some of these decisions on behalf of the community, but that's because we should be talking with the community on how they want some of these decisions actually made. So really, there's the amount of time that we should be spending reading those papers, making those decisions, but there should also be the amount of time that we're actually out in the community, actually asking on opinions. These are the decisions that are coming up for the council that are really important. What do you think needs to happen? You're the ratepayer, you're providing the money to the council, your opinion actually really matters. What can we do? Is there something that the council hadn't thought about that maybe it might seem like it's coming from out of nowhere, but really, if you actually take the time to look at it, there's actually a grain of truth to it. How do we actually build that into the decision making as well?
Yeah, good point. I mean, there seems to be consultation processes up the wazoo that are buried in the way the councils, not just this one, but most councils do things. And for some reason, they don't seem to be too effective. I suspect it's because they're not really focused on how the community works and how you actually get alongside a community to get feedback. It's obviously a two-way street. If you can't manage to communicate with the community, you don't know what they're thinking and where they might be going, and therefore you can't be transparent. In terms of running businesses, I think that and this is sort of like a big business in many ways. You can't engage staff without having a shared vision about where you might be going in your business. And then once you've got a shared vision, that allows people to actually get on with work and how things may work. And so they can actually understand the linkages between where the community wants to go, where what's happening in order to take the community there, and actually why the decisions are being made the way they are. So it's not just about transparency on decisions, it's about understanding the whole process from the why, how, through to actually what's delivered in the end. So I think we need to have a really good look at how these processes work, and we need to have no doubt, probably a large conversation with the community about saying, if this is the current process, how can we actually do something that's better than our current processes to make sure that our decisions are clear, transparent, and we remain accountable.
I guess I do have a bit of an add-on question. This is something that's been an issue for this show, is rural engagement.
Yeah.
From experience, Collier, because you work in the primary sector, what do you think is the best way to connect with rural ratepayers?
Yeah, it's a good point. I spent a long time working in the deer industry, and if you wanted to connect with deer farmers, for example, then you had to go and visit them. So I spent a large amount of my time in deer sheds in Southland and Te Anau and Waikato, all over the place, talking to farmers. And that was very much about the same as I was saying before. It's about, actually, what do you guys want out of your deer industry? You know, what works for you, and how can we make it work? Which just mirrors what you were saying in terms of this process. And so I think it's most of the time when it comes to the rural community, it's be prepared to get off your butt, get out there and actually talk to them in places that are relevant to them, not expect them to come into Martinborough or in Greytown to have a conversation. But yeah, and I think the other thing with the rural community, they actually live in a value chain. You know, so there's the farmers, then there's the processor marketers, and then out into the marketplace. And so not only do you need to consider them as farmers, you need to understand that whole value chain they're in. So quite often you spend time talking to processors and marketers and what have you, and input suppliers as well. But key to it, get out there, meet them in their spot where it matters, and at a time that matters to them.
And what do you think, Michelle?
Oh, 100% agree. It's actually getting out there to their place and actually talking with them. You know, you look at rural communities, they do get together, they have their own social networks.
Yes.
And you know, you've got to be open to stepping outside your comfort zone and talking with them and learning their lingo as well, and learning what their priorities are, because you know they may have different priorities, they may have some that are the same, but if you don't ask, you don't know.
Sorry, it's actually, when you think about it, it's all about listening, not talking. Because you ask a question, then you say, right, what do you think about this, and then take all the input back. It's not about saying, oh, this is how it should go. It's about how do you think it would work? How would it work best for you guys?
Yeah. So more what we call kanohi ki te kanohi, face-to-face consultation with the farmers.
Yep.
Excellent.
Not cutting the plan, here it is, and you've got to do it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. So with that, we're going to go into hard-hitting questions.
Hard-hitting questions, we don't get any debating. What does a question? Because every candidate has the answer. The hard-hitting questions.
And rest assured, folks, ladies and gentlemen at home, I will not be shouting at the candidates. Okay, with that said, we'll get into hard-hitting question number 1. There are 3 hard-hitting questions in total. Okay. Do you think South Wairarapa District Council is doing enough in terms of wastewater treatment and disposal?
No.
I think that was an easy question.
Yeah, exactly. And I must say that is actually one of the reasons why I decided to stand in the first place is, you know, as a motel owner, our rates, $15,000 to $16,000 is just for wastewater because we happen to have 16 toilets. The primary school got hit with a $30,000 wastewater bill because of the number of toilets they have. So financially, there's some nonsensical ways it's being funded that need to be addressed. But 2, I haven't, until a post 2 days ago about Martinborough's wastewater pond having some sludge taken out of it, That's the first thing I've heard so in the 5.5 years that I've been here, and I've been hearing for quite a while that this has actually been a big problem. You can't just pass the buck to somebody else. I know that we're talking about a regional partnership around water and wastewater, but we can't afford to talk about it. We've actually got to get some action in place. So I think it is a very big issue. I don't think the council have actually done enough. And I'm not just talking about the most recent council, I'm talking about councils going back as well. And I think we really, really need to make sure some action happens quite quickly. And we need to do steps change. We can't afford to do incremental change when it comes to wastewater. And we really are going to have to think outside the box on this one.
Yeah, I don't think we haven't been doing enough for a very long time, as we've said earlier in this interview conversation. And so I think that while, as you say, we are going to go into a regional wastewater and freshwater scheme, which I think makes a whole lot of sense because you might get some economy of scale out of it. I think we're still going to have to keep a very close eye on how that actually works, because the costings we've seen come out of those discussions so far look like they're very significant costs for the South Wairarapa, and we need to understand what's going on and driving those costs so that we can actually do something about them. Internationally, you see lots of other options in dealing with wastewater. I, for my sins, at one stage was working with a dairy farm, and we put a biodigester on it. So we were running the dairy waste through the biodigester and generated electricity. So there are other options that can be thought about to actually utilise these waste streams. But I think if we simply use what we've always used and expect to get a different outcome, I don't think we will. So it's going to take, as you've just said, some different ways of looking at these things, some cunning plans and some combined sort of force from the community to actually drive these things forward. Otherwise, I suspect we won't get the change we need.
And Greytown's looking at, they're saying potentially an additional $6,000 per year in rates just for wastewater. Well, if that's the benchmark, what are the leap things that we can do to bring that down? People know that number now. You're scaring people away. They don't want to be here in 2034 for when that happens. We actually have to use that as the ceiling and actually say, okay, how are these, what initiatives are we going to do to actually get it down? And it also will keep rates down at the level that's affordable for the community. We can't, you're right, we can't just carry on thinking if we do this, we're going to get a different result. We're not. We've actually got to think differently and be open to different approaches. And there's a lot of knowledge out of the community if we actually open up the question as well.
Alrighty, hard-hitting question number 2. Oh, okay. We have a guest and we've got another guest. Okay, I'll continue to ask the question. Are you comfortable with the way South Wairarapa District Council manages its debt position?
I made sure I had a look at this over the last couple of days, and this is where I was really surprised how low the debt level is for South Wairarapa for the District Council. And I think, that, as I mentioned before, given all the challenges we've got with infrastructure, and especially wastewater, we really have to look at how do we leverage debt so that we make it affordable for this and the next generation to be able to deal with all these infrastructure problems, because cash up front is not going to work. People cannot afford the rate increases for that to happen. Therefore, we have to have sensible debt management so that we can leverage debt so that we can actually pay for some of this infrastructure that needs to be put in place now to fix some of the critical issues. Things that should have been done generations ago are now having to be dealt with. Well, we're not going to be the one generation that can afford to pay for it, but we can be the generation that does something about it, but also make sure that it's affordable as the community has to pay for it in the future. I'm not saying that we overarch on what our debt position should be, but I think there are some ways that we can do it a lot smarter, and we shouldn't just pay off all our debt because it looks really good in the books when we've got all these other issues that we've got to deal with. And as I did say before, when we've, by stopping all the consent work, we're stopping all the income to the developers, the builders, the plumbers, the electrician. That's money that's not going home, and that's activities and food for the community. So it's not just about debt, it's actually how you leverage it.
Mm. Oh, I think we've missed our
Missed the cue.
Go ahead.
You're right. When I did my quick bit of research on the council's debt levels, they seem to be manageable. They're certainly not up at the ceiling. If you look around New Zealand at the various levels of debt in the other councils, they're significantly higher than Greytown on a per capita basis. Having said that, you can't afford to just run debt up willy-nilly, because at the end you've got to pay the interest on it. But you do need to be able to use it wisely to bridge gaps that you couldn't bridge otherwise, because certainly often you need to actually have operational systems, wastewater now, and you can't afford to raise the levies, so raise the rates in order to fund it right now, so you might have to borrow some to bridge that gap. But in bridging that gap, you need to be conscious of the fact that you can't leave the debt up forever, because in the end, if you keep paying for things with debt, all you'll do is increase your debt level, which will gradually, quite quickly, probably become quite unsustainable. So it is about how you balance up the debt to smooth over the humps and the hollows, and how you make sure that if you're using debt, that you're doing it in a way that actually is going to support the growth of the economy, rather than just funding basic activities which aren't going to support the economy at all.
Alrighty. Now for the last question. Hope it's a good one. Oh, here we go. What is your position on retaining the South Wairarapa District Councils, Te Karu o Te Ika o Maui Māori Ward, and the Greater Wellington Regional Councils, Te Upuko o Te Ika o Maui Māori constituency, and why do you hold that position?
I believe they should stay in place. As I mentioned before, I've seen the benefit to the community by having a longer perspective come through from iwi and hapu, through decisions, through the local knowledge that they have that not everybody can understand, can share, and it can be of great benefit. I know too from talking with iwi elsewhere that they can actually find it quite hard to be able to respond to all these requests for their knowledge and their experience and their opinions. This is one way that they can afford to do it, that we can make sure that representation and that knowledge and that perspective is actually provided in decisions and guidance together through council.
Mm-hmm. Hi, Nick.
So sorry.
We thought you were going to clap.
There we go.
Absolutely. The actual council position should be maintained. There's no question in my mind about that. We signed up, well, we went around and we signed up to it, but we signed up to a treaty many, many years ago, which basically provided for us to work with Maori on an ongoing basis, and providing solid ways of actually making that work, like council seats, is a great way of actually doing it. If, however, the voting public decides they don't want those council seats, it's not going to change the way we actually work with iwi, because we need them either through their standing committee or just working with them in the community to make sure that we're well and truly connected to what their concerns are, what their needs are, and how we might drive or support those going forward, because they are part of the community.
I guess there's one question that I've always wanted to kind of figure out, find the answer to here, being South Wairarapa. What do you guys think of what's happening down Ngāwi with the paper road?
Is this online or offline?
I put a submission in on that, that I'm against a bylaw closing it. I think there are other ways, again, we talked about community engagement.
Yep.
I think there are other ways to achieve those objectives through community engagement. And I'm talking about the wide users and they said that the high number outside of the region that actually responded to that. Well, those are also people that actually come in. So they are also part of the community that we can engage with and have participation with to actually look after that paper road. It's quite, when you look at the pictures that they put on TV, it's quite telling too with the erosion that's taken place, and that the paper road itself is actually disappearing in parts as well. but it actually does show that there is a lot of passion around it.
Oh, yes.
If you close it off, my husband's on a wheelchair, so I'm very passionate about accessibility. If you close the paper road to pedestrians, to bikes, actually to vehicles as well, then you're removing anybody in a wheelchair, somebody who uses a walker, somebody who uses a walking stick, anybody that has mobility issues. Suddenly that part of the coast is completely cut off. They don't even have the option to think about whether they want to go or not. You know, expecting everybody to be able to climb over a hill is unrealistic. What ways can we engage? And I did actually, as part of a Facebook message, I did actually ask the question, so what of engagement have you done before this? And the response I got back was, this is our engagement. I'm sorry, that's not community engagement. Making a decision and saying this is the option, yes or no, that is not community engagement. Community engagement is actually asking the question, this is what the problem is, what do you think the different solution might be? And that way we might come up with a different solution because we've asked the question.
Alrighty.
Yeah, I agree. It does seem like a strange process to arrive at this point in the fashion they have. You really need to find some other ways of managing the challenges that you see down there, because the issues mostly aren't relating to people walking there or people biking there. It's people carelessly using four-wheel drives and causing damage on a whole lot of land. And so there needs to be probably a smarter way of managing that. And I agree with you, the process should have really started before that, with the users of that area working out what they were needed and how that could be worked out, rather than deciding that actually we're just going to come up with a bylaw to stop access. So I understand iwi being really annoyed because it is actually making a mess of their land, and that somehow needs to be managed, but I'm not sure this is the best way to manage it.